Hi, I'm Ella Cesari, and I am a class of 2021 BFA Animation major at SVA. My experience at SVA has been pretty transformative for me as an artist, but also just like generally as a person. Um, so coming out of high school, I went to an arts high school. I majored in visual arts. I didn't take it as seriously as I probably should have, and consequently, I felt behind when I was entering college. I definitely lacked some fundamental skills and didn't life draw nearly enough. I probably still don't, and it was very evident in my portfolio at the time, I would say. And my animation from this time, I wouldn't call it bad, but the science wasn't there. The actual working understanding of like, oh, this is timing, this is spacing, these are all these factors that make animation look a certain way. And like I loved and I still love visual storytelling. And I was making, my little storyboards and short films with the plucky naivete that I had. But, like my heart was in it, but my brain just needed to catch up. So Richard Gorey, my intro to animation teacher from first year, I definitely credit a lot of that subsequent education to him. I highly recommend his classes to whoever has the opportunity to learn from him. I think he imparted a lot of that film theory and the psychology of a frame, but then also the principles of animation and all that fun stuff. And the great thing about now, like having that technical knowledge, is that it came back around to benefit the storytelling and the heart. Because maybe you're not the best at every aspect of animation, and I was not. But once you understand what you're capable of, you can work with that and write with that and tell your stories more effectively, especially for thesis year. I think that's really important. So I think what started as me entering college thinking that I was going to just get all the foundation and theory into my brain and become a real true animator, whatever that means, eventually turned into finding my niche. I think SVA is at its best when it embraces that, and I do genuinely think that the animation department especially does a wonderful job at giving you the space to figure out your specificity and your specialty. And it's hard, right? Because like the instinct to compare to other artists is just so strong. At least like the first half of my time at SVA was just spent pushing past that urge. And it's still a struggle sometimes. And it's easy to just say with words, don't focus on what others are doing. But I think the animation department has made that part of their structure. Again, I'll use an example from thesis because my thesis instructor, Lisa Labraccio, highly recommend, was so versatile and totally like meets you where you are and helps you be the best you. I'm very grateful that I was able to, mostly break out of that toxic comparison behavior. Another thing that was a struggle to get through artistically was the fact that there were pieces of advice or guidance or skills that would not fully click or properly manifest until much later, like years down the line. Like I would be taught something in freshman year, and only like in junior year would I go, oh hey, there's that skill. Like, but I didn't really understand that, and it would be so frustrating that I wasn't seeing any progress because I didn't get that it just had to like live up here for a while. Like animation teachers would go, oh, push the pose, exaggerate, and I'd go, I'm pushing, I'm exaggerating, why does it still look really stiff? And there could be this pressure, I think, whether it's external or like from your own mind, to produce visible results. And I honestly think sometimes that's not really fair to ourselves. Like sometimes a skill just needs to sit in your brain and marinate as you practice and practice and practice. And they might not look any different for a while, and that's okay. Like, I was terrified of life drawing because I could repeat all the lessons in my head, just go, straights and curves and skeletons and bones and but my drawings didn't look any better. And it wasn't until Stephen Gaffney's drawing class, another recommendation, that he has this patience and like this style of teaching where I can find my way at my own pace. Because with him, he made it very clear. He was very good at making clear what the goals were of like representing the forms of a figure, seeing them as 3D shapes rather than lines. And that spoke to me so much more than like, you know, what I was kind of echoing in my head prior, which was like, just make it look better. Why doesn't it look better? Like, I felt like suddenly I had breathing space to make that incremental improvement. And you know, again, that might be invisible, but one day you'll notice, hey, this looks a lot better than what I was doing last year. And you've internalized the skill without even realizing it. So that's definitely a big lesson that my overall SVA experience taught me. Just give yourself time. Just because you don't see improvement doesn't mean it's not happening on the inside, and it will show itself. On a somewhat deeper level, I am literally a different person than the person who I was when I entered SVA. I started my gender transition in college, and I am just so infinitely grateful to have the community that I have, and a lot of those friends I made through school. I wouldn't have even found my path to transition without the community of friends, many of whom are trans or otherwise LGBT+, that I made while I was living in the city. And, you know, New York, it's quite a place to realize that you're trans. Definitely like a shared vibe and like a sense of everyone there is at least a little weird, so I never felt like I stood out in a bad way. But more importantly, transition gave me a stronger sense of self, as it so often does. And honestly, that changed everything for me. It put everything into perspective, including my art and me as an artist, just everything. And like pre-transition, it was like I was trying to fill a void that I didn't know was there. And so part of that was defining myself as an artist and, you know, viewing my art skills as central to my being. And I was really unhappy because when something wasn't working artistically, it felt like I, as a person, was not working, which was obviously false, but, you know, it was so hard to separate those feelings because I didn't have anything to replace it with. But becoming more of the person that I want to be made me realize that existing is enough because I'm existing as someone I love. And, you know, I can simply be, and art can be something I do rather than something I am, which is just so freeing. And like, you know, it seems obvious now that I'm saying it, but like when you're in the moment and you're in the trenches, you don't even realize that you can live differently. But now I can hold my art skills at a healthier distance from my self-worth. And that is hands down the most important lesson from my time at SVA. It's not something anyone necessarily teaches like in class, but you know, the community and the environment that school provided was a huge factor. And you know, for whatever it's worth, I'll say it here, wherever your path as an artist takes you, you're still a whole person. And I hope that whoever's watching this, if anyone, that you either learn it, if you haven't learned it yet. And if you have learned it, then remember it. Thank you.